The Ford 289 HiPo V8, also known as the K code, holds a special place in muscle car history. The 289 HiPo gained fame for its role in the early Shelby GT350 Mustangs. It featured a mechanical camshaft with flat tappets, 10.5-to-1 compression, and 2-point distributor, smaller combustion chamber heads with molded spring cups and screw-in studs, low restriction exhaust manifolds, and a larger 595 CFM manual choke carburetor. The standard 289 4-barrel was 480 CFM. The water pump, fuel pump, and alternator generator pulleys were modified with an extra spring and larger diameter to help handle the higher engine speeds. This engine produced an impressive 271 horsepower and 312 pound-feet of torque, and in terms of performance, it could push the Shelby GT350 from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.6 seconds, a remarkable feat in the mid-1960s. It had a top speed of around 130 miles per hour. Approximately 13,000 289 HiPo V8 engines were built between March 1963 and June 1967, which is less than even 1% of the 2 million Mustangs produced over the same period. The 289 was used in classic muscle cars like the Shelby GT350 and the Ford Mustang GT. Its blend of power, reliability, and performance set the standard for what a muscle car engine should be. The Ford Boss 302 V8 is a product of the muscle car wars of the late 1960s. It was particularly developed to compete in the SCCA Trans Am Racing Series. The Ford Boss 302, formerly the 302HO, was a high-performance, small-block, 302 cubic inch, 4.9-liter V8 engine manufactured by Ford Motor Company. The original version of this engine was used in the 1969 and 1970 Boss 302 Mustangs and Cougar Eliminators. Under the hood, the Boss 302 was powered by a 302 cubic inch V8 engine that is capable of producing up to 290 horsepower at 5,800 RPM. The engine's unique cylinder heads, exhaust manifolds, and carburetor make it one of the most advanced and powerful engines of its time. The car also features a hydraulic 4-speed transmission that provides smooth and seamless gear shifts. The Boss 302 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds and complete a quarter mile in approximately 14.6 seconds, with a top speed of 138 miles per hour. AMC gets a bad rap from just about everyone. Sloppy build quality, controversial styling, a hodgepodge of parts from other manufacturers, perpetual chassis carryover, you name it. Amid all the criticism, AMC's achievements often get overlooked. For instance, consider the 401 engine. Even in the emissions era, it put out roughly as much horsepower and torque as the 500 CI Caddy motor of the day. No wonder the Los Angeles Police Department used a gaggle of 401 Matador pursuit cars in the 70s. The AMC 401 produced 330 horsepower and a staggering 430 pound-feet of torque. The 401 could propel a car from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.5 seconds, with a top speed of 140 miles per hour. The 401 AMC also suffers from a poorly designed oiling system in which oil travels up the front of the block and feeds the lifter galleys, but starves the rear crankshaft bearings. These engines tend to munch distributor drive gears for much the same reason. But American's performance oiling kit eliminates these nits. All of this adds up to one fast American that won't boil over or seize up on you. A hairy beast to be sure, one that'll knock your socks off in a 3,000-pound chassis. Drop one of these babies in a Gremlin or Spirit and go shock a Chevelle. The Chevrolet 396 came into being in 1965, when Chevy entered its fourth generation of big block engines in the mid-1960s. They modified the mechanics of the engines, nicknaming them the Rat Motors, in opposition to the small block Mouse Motors. This is where the 396 comes into play, which aimed to take the power of that original 427 and put it into a somewhat smaller package. Although the 396 lasted only 5 years and was replaced by a 402, the engine was so popular among the people that they kept calling it the 396. The 396 engine was capable of producing up to 375 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. It could launch a vehicle from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.3 seconds, and with a top speed of around 135 miles per hour. Classic muscle cars like the Chevrolet Chevelle SS and the Chevrolet Camaro SS were some of the most notable cars that received the 396 engine. In 1970, the company made a decision to take the 396 V8 and sculpt it into a 402 V8. This dramatically reduced the amount of horsepower the V8 could produce, topping out at 350 horsepower with its strongest model. The 402s only lasted until 1973. Chevy big block engines weren't over, but the era of the 396 V8 was the last one. Introduced in 1970, the Cadillac 500 engine boasted more cubic inches than anything offered in the General Motors portfolio, and it cranked out power enough to put to shame many muscle cars of the day. This engine was primarily found in the Cadillac Eldorado. The Cadillac 500 produced a boastful 400 horsepower and a whopping 550 pound-feet of torque. This massive torque allowed for incredible acceleration and pulling power. The engine had the capability to push a vehicle from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.8 seconds and complete the quarter mile in about 14.5 seconds, with a top speed of around 125 miles per hour. While the Cadillac 500 was not initially intended for muscle cars, the engine's ability to deliver massive power and torque made it ideal for performance applications. Suitable for a drag build, a big cube cruiser, or a tow-rig torque monster, the Cadillac 500 V8 is an overlooked high-performance option for those eager to think outside the small block box. The Chrysler RB440 was introduced in 1966 as part of Chrysler's RB series of engines. The initials RB stand for raised block, meaning a taller deck height than the B engine to accommodate the RB's longer stroke. Other engines which fall into this category include the 413 and the 426 Wedge. This engine was available in various high-performance models, including the Dodge Charger RT and the Plymouth Roadrunner. The Chrysler 440 could produce up to 375 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. The 440 could accelerate from 0 to 60 in around 6.5 seconds, cover the quarter mile in approximately 14 seconds, and have a top speed of about 130 miles per hour. The Chevrolet 454 LS6 was introduced in 1970. When the 454 cubic inch engine appeared in the Chevrolet catalog in 1970, it was intended to rule the streets by building on the same Mark IV design and architecture used in the previous generation of its 427 engine. The 454 had the 427's 4.25-inch bore, but it increased the stroke to 4 inches. The LS6 was available in models like the Chevrolet Chevelle SS and the Chevrolet Corvette. At the entry level, the 360 horsepower LS5 was found in full-size models like the Caprice, as well as in the SS-badged cars like the Chevelle, the Monte Carlo, and the El Camino. It was also featured in the Corvette. At the top end was the 450 horsepower LS6, which could be included with the Chevelle and the El Camino SS 454 cars. What set the LS6 apart from its more modest sibling? Well, it featured a solid lifter camshaft versus the hydraulic lifters on the LS5, with a 0.520-inch lift, exhaust and intake, and 316-degree duration, and came with a low-rise aluminum intake, forged aluminum pistons, and a massive 800 CFM 4-barrel Holley carburetor. Today, the LS6 is a legend. Although Chevrolet has since offered crate motors featuring more power and torque, it's still a sought-after spec for collectors or clone builders who simply want the hottest big block bow-tie engine of the era. The Ford 427 FE, introduced in the mid-1960s, quickly became a legend in racing circles. Designed specifically to dominate at the highest levels of NASCAR, NHRA, and even international sports car competition, the Ford 427 V8 became a legend that demonstrated just how advanced The automaker's engineering capabilities were during an era when horsepower was king and brands were seeking even the highest edge over each other. The 427 FE produced up to 425 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. The engine could sling a vehicle from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.5 seconds and complete the quarter mile in approximately 13.5 seconds, with a top speed of a staggering 140 miles per hour. Classic muscle cars like the Ford Galaxy, Ford Fairlane, and the iconic Shelby Cobra were powered by this very engine. The engine became particularly famous for powering, or rather overpowering, the Shelby Cobra, which helped create one of the most legendary performance cars in history. The 427 FE was also used in the racing variants of the Ford GT40, which won multiple Le Mans races. The Ford 427 FE, to this day, remains a symbol of Ford's engineering prowess and commitment to performance. The massive racing successes of the 427 FE and its powering the GT40, the Cobra, and the Thunderbolt have secured its place in the history of all-time American big block engines. The engines we've talked about today are more than just mechanical marvels. They are the heart and soul of the muscle car era. Each engine, from the high-revving Ford 289 HiPo V8 to the colossal Cadillac 500, tells a story of innovation, power, and a relentless pursuit of performance. These engines powered some of the most iconic muscle cars ever built. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow geeks, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Leave a comment below and let us know which muscle car engine is your favorite and why. Stay tuned for more exciting content and keep your spirits revving.